Styles are important for any Civil 3D object, but in the case of parcel labels, they can be especially powerful in controlling the application or function of a label. Let's see how this works. I'm going to start by labeling this long, narrow parcel here, and I'll do that in the same manner that we learned earlier. I'll launch the Add Labels command, go to Parcel, I'll do Multiple Segment because I want to take advantage of being able to create multiple labels. I'll click Add and click the area label for the parcel and say I want to go clockwise. So far so good, but I noticed there's a lot of labels along this top side and there seems to be some redundancy. So I've got this bearing listed 4 separate times. Do I really need that? And I'd like to say no. I'd like to actually make the labeling in this area a little more efficient. So what if we just labeled this bearing once and labeled the individual distances across the top? So 1 label on the bottom, 4 labels on the top. So what I'm going to do here is start by changing the style of this label. So I'll click the label, click Properties, and I'm going to choose a style that's kind of a special style type. It's called a span style. And let me go ahead and just switch that over and I'll explain what a span does. But before I can do that, we've got to do some switching. So I need to get this value on the bottom side of the line. So to do that, I'll click Flip Label. And then I've got to get these little markers. These are called crow's feet on the correct side of the line also. So for that, I'll reverse the label. So now everything's where it should be. The label is on the underside of the line and the crow's feet mark the beginning and end. So this is what a span label does. There are actually multiple segments between these crow's feet. There's one here, one here, one here, and one here. But what the span label does is it says ignore what's on the opposite side of the line and span across the side that I'm on. So if you think about it, on the bottom side of the line, it's 1 segment, but on the top side of the line, it's 4 segments. So the span will span across those 4 segments that are on the opposite side of the line. So that gets us half of the way to where we want to be. The other part is that we want to change these individual labels to distances. So how do we do that? The same way, we change the style. So I'll click the first one here and go to Properties, and you'll notice that there's a child. The style that's currently in use is called Bearing over Distance, and there's a child called Distance. There's also one called Bearing, and you can guess what that's for. But what's going on here with this parent-child relationship is this style was derived from its parent, so it probably shares a lot of the same properties, the font, the color, the layer, those types of things. And you can override those things, but by default it will adopt what its parent does, and in most cases the labels typically just keep whatever that is. So I'll pick Distance and take a look here, and you can see that it's just the distance being labeled now on this segment. So I'll do the other 2. This one we'll address last. Again, I'll click the Properties command to bring up the Properties window. I can do multiples because it's just the standard AutoCAD window. You may recall with other commands, if I right-click and do like Parcel Properties or Alignment Properties, it brings up a Civil 3D dialog that doesn't let me make multiple modifications at once, but this one does because it's just the good old AutoCAD Properties window. So here I'll once again change the style to just Distance, and now we've got 3 distance labels. So how do I handle this middle one? Well, I could create a style, a derivative of this style that will label the distance on the other side, but really this is kind of a one-shot thing, so I'm going to show you a little trick here to just create a distance label on the top. What I'm going to do is click this label next to it, drag it over to the spot where I want the new label, but before I click the point, I'm just going to hold my Control key. Control is a little shortcut that says go ahead and copy this. So I'll hold down the Control key, click that spot, and it has copied the label over. Now it's a little misleading because they're the same distance, so you may think, well, it just copied the text, it didn't get the distance right. So to show you that it does in fact work properly, I'll use this one instead. So I'll drag it over, hold down the Control key, and click the spot, and you can see that it's 108.83. So I copy this label to here, and it's smart enough to know that it's labeling this segment and that the distance is 108.83 feet. So you've just seen one example of how label styles can be used to get a desired result. There are many more, so hopefully you'll be able to apply what you've learned here in lots of different ways.